My name is Miu.
I'm Harry Church.
My name is Green.
Lila.
Ava.
Kaelin.
Lauren.
Eric.
Allison.
Johnny.
Ocean.
Mia.
Farouk.
Preyas.
Margot.
No.
I was not.
No.
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 Yes.
No, but I am trying to use sports as a way to get off a wait list.
No.
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 No, I wasn't.
Yes, I was.
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
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 Yes.
No.
I am not.
No.
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 Yes.
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 No, I'm not.
No.
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 I just didn't realize how much information went into college applications, but also how much of yourself you had to put into college applications, because I was I don't it's one of those things where it's I never really imagined it before, and then I saw it the first time and I was like, whoa, what is this?
I think that I had to do it alone. There's a big misconception that it's all on you to do all of the college process. And the thing that was most influential for me is that I had a great group of people, a great group of supports that was able to help me make my process go smoothly.
I think for me, I had this expectation of myself in that my entire application needed to be absolutely perfect, in the sense that I needed to have the right activities, to write about the most optimistic things that happened to me, or how I kind of overcame some great challenge. And even though these things are true, I realized that my application is never going to be absolutely perfect or what I hoped it's going to be.
I think I didn't understand how much people had spent a lot of their lives, especially a lot of their adolescence, focusing on college as an end goal. For me, I didn't really think about college a lot until I came to Deerfield as a new junior. So definitely coming to Deerfield, the experience of college being such an important and seemingly the end-all be-all for a lot of people was very surprising.
I think people don't talk a lot about the schools that you aren't necessarily that excited to go to, that you view as a safety, for example, because Deerfield and just the people at the school want. There's just such a high, there's just high expectations. I think there's just a misconception is that the reality is not everyone's going to be in that range.
It's less about the grades you receive and the extracurriculars that you do versus if you're a legacy, if you're a sports recruit, if you know the right people.
I expected the worst the whole time, and the misconception was that I thought there wasn't much change I could do to what I had already done when I first started entering the process and thinking about the process, beginning of junior year. I thought I had essentially worsened my chances before, and there wasn't any change I could do when I started the process.
When you go to a school like Deerfield, leaving whatever international school that you left, there's automatically an assumption that you're going to go get this bigger, better education in America, and you're gonna be able to go to a better college. And then there's this expectation put on your parents that because of the little things they know about the American college system, they expect you to go somewhere great, or they expect you to go something that somewhere that carries a name in a regard, or something that has prestige. Not everyone's gonna get to go where they get to go.
I probably was not going to end up at my number one school.
You have to be pretty realistic with yourself.
Once you send it in, it's out of your control.
That I wasn't going to swim in college, that I wasn't fast enough.
You can do everything that you can, or you can do everything that's sort of seen as conventionally right to get into a good school, and you still might not get into the good school because realistically there's kind of too many factors going into the college process, and to some extent it's a little bit arbitrary. So you can have all statistically your application can look the best, but you might not get into all the schools you want to get into. And
I college has been something that I've thought about since I was
a little kid. Like that's always just like I've always lived in environments where like that were very college focused, like not necessarily from my parents or my family, but from like the schools I went to and the people I was like surrounded with. And I think that I like had this image in my head of like what the college process was going to have to look at like, and like the school I was going to have to go to, and like all of these things. Whereas like, and it was very stressful, but like at some point over the summer in like June or July, I just kind of realized that like it's like I'm going to get rejected from somewhere. I'm probably going to get like waitlisted, deferred. Like it's just like when you look at the actual percentage chances, it's so unlikely that you're going to get in to like your top school, that you're going to get in early, that like the earlier in the process you can accept that like rejection is going to happen, and that like people, like it's going to feel competitive and it's going to be really hard, and you're going to have to put a lot, it's going to be a very like emotional process and a very like stressful process, and like just kind of accepting that like you are going to end up where you're meant to end up.
I think it's difficult to understand that your peers around you are all coming from different places, and understand that at Deerfield, like legacy admissions plays a huge role, athletic recruitment plays a huge role, and that there is amongst like our grade and amongst my peers a sense of competitiveness for schools that is hard to ignore. I think especially as I looked at international schools, there was a lack of understanding of schools that were outside of the NESCACs or the Ivies, or schools that Deerfield and Deerfield students had deemed good.
That I had to push myself, and that others around me aren't going to help and push me because they're doing their own thing. Same as my parents, they really gave me a lot of free reign, and so I really had to get my act together and take initiative and do things myself.
The entire process of like writing your personal statement and writing these college essays, you really have to, it's a very introspective process, and that isn't necessarily an easy thing to do, especially because I feel like the years leading up to that, like sophomore year, junior year, goes by really fast, and just having to suddenly like stop and really reflect on the past like couple of years of your life can be hard.
I think it is, and I don't think it should be.
I don't think so.
I think absolutely.
I don't think so. I've never had a bad experience talking about colleges with my friends. I think back home it's a lot more competitive.
I think it depends a lot on friend groups.
I think everyone's at a different starting position in the process and end position, and I think with my friends we were always pretty open about the whole thing, because especially for me it brought me so much stress that for me the best way to go about it was to talk about it.
I think to a certain level there's always a bit of pretense when people at Deerfield talk about college, because everybody wants to be able to relate to their peers, and everyone is going through the college process, but at a certain level people are all competing with each other. And I think especially when you look at the types of schools that nearly all of our grade is trying to get into, Ivies, top NESCACs, or top 20 schools, there is the idea that your friend can become your competitor. And I think that's really hard when people want to talk about their struggle with the college process.
At least for some of my friends, they really struggled with even sharing like which college they are going to next year, just because like if it's like a state college or just not an Ivy League, like they get really insecure about that. And I don't think people care as much as you think they do.
Like people at the end of the day like are really like insecure about this whole process, because we know like how much like judgment we've put on other people in the past, or like how much we've thought about like, oh, like where our proctors are going, or like where our seniors going. And like I think, you know, like when you go through the process you like learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about like, I don't know, applying to like you just learn a lot more than like you do watching other people apply to college and go to college.
It's not that it's hard for me to talk about it. Like, I'm trying to be supportive of everyone, and I'm happy for everyone. But there are times where, you know, later I'll reflect and I'll be like, dang, like, I feel like I worked harder and I'm not getting the same compensation.
I mean, as much as we say there are just because of the amount of like legacy students here. I think family plays a really big role in the idea that if your family goes somewhere good or somewhere like they have deemed good, then you have to kind of follow in their footsteps. I think also it's hard with athletic recruitment because Deerfield is a place that sends a lot of athletic recruits, not necessarily to all the top sports schools, but sends students to Ivies for sports. So there's kind of like this narrative of like sports being a vessel to the Ivies, like the other students like have to find a way to the Ivies or top 20 schools, and it's hard to escape that pressure, I think.
I don't think there is necessarily. I think that when there is an expectation for someone to go to a specific college, it's more so associated with a specific person. And I think this is why a lot of people don't choose to tell other people where they applied to college, because I think sometimes you hear some chatter after someone, like, if someone's smart, didn't get into a college, people, like, sometimes you hear people, like, start to question, like, how smart they are.
Sometimes the ranking actually, like, makes it, like, worse because of all the pressure and all the scrutiny around it. So, like, honestly, I would have been happy going to, like, any of the colleges that I applied to, just because I know that each one of them would be unique. And also, someone told me once that you can always learn to love a place. So I think that wherever I ended up, I would have found a way to like it and love it. And this entire, like, bullshit about, like, the college process doesn't really, like, shouldn't be that high pressure at Deerfield.
We're all going to this, like, very, like, good high school, and I think a lot of people think to make the most of that opportunity, you have to go to, like, an Ivy or the best possible, like, most competitive school.
People need to start to understand that it's more about the journey at Deerfield, which is what's growing you, and it's not necessarily about the result.
I think there were moments where I was leaning more towards, like, going to a NESCAC or a D3 smaller school, but I feel like I was, like, just, like, around me, I heard people talking, and, like, the way people were talking about certain schools, I was like, oh, I think I would want to go to a larger school, D1, more competitive, stuff like that.
What I define as a good school is really the ones, like, if you searched up, like, top colleges in America, like, those is what I thought of as, like, the good schools. And
I think I just followed along with what everybody else was saying.
Originally, I defined a good school from acceptance rate.
Before, I kind of thought, like, I guess in terms of rankings, like, any school in the top, like, 50 would be, like, really good schools.
For me, I define a good school, what would be good for me and my major. And it has changed throughout the process because I've I've had to look at schools I wasn't originally looking at and looking more specifically at this, like, a certain school or a certain major or program that they have that they're known for. Maybe not just like because they're a name school. It's more just like on the small program that they have. And I also think doing this has opened my eyes to how, like, every college is a good college. And it's, like, a good college for you. It's not, like, sometimes going to that name school is not going to be the best college for me or for anyone applying. Sometimes it will be. So I think over the course of this college process, like, I've had to come to terms, maybe in kind of a harsh way, that the best college for me is not going to be, like, what I once thought it was going to be.
And I feel like it all kind of revolves around sports. Like, I would only consider it a good school if it's good at rowing. And I feel like that's very, like, different for everyone.
I think that's a lot of the influence of my parents. My dad always had a criteria for me of, you know, in sports, if you break your leg sophomore year, right, you still have to want to be at that place.
If I had a bad tour, like a bad info session, I was out of there. Like, and I don't think I was being picky. I just think of, like, I look around and I just kind of get a vibe. I guess that's not really a real thing, but I don't know, it's real enough to me.
Well, I just knew their name. I just knew how hard they are to get into. I just knew, like, oh, their reputation everywhere. But after I got more nuance, I said, okay, so they have these statistics and their names, and it's like, oh, obviously they're still good, But like after that layer is more like nuanced and say, okay, so why are they this good? What are they especially
I do
good
think
at?
that Deerfield has changed the way I viewed my admissions process, because being at a boarding school, you are thrown into a pool of everyone else in boarding schools, and that's how the admissions committee makes their decision. And there have been times when like this year, when I've been like, if I stayed at my other high school, I could have been going to like XYZ schools.
Oh, at least like I was a repeat. Like I remember I was a freshman in my old school in Chicago, and there was not nearly the same amount of pressure. I mean, it was, people were going to great schools, of course, but it wasn't as, it wasn't thought about every day.
But the whole time, I kept telling myself that Deerfield is going to prepare me the best for college. So whether or not the college admission doesn't work out, Deerfield has prepared me better for the next step.
It's a big deal here, right? Like, most schools, there's only some people who actually end up going to colleges, right? And like here, it's a prep school. They're prepping you for college, and everyone is thinking about college from the day they get in. Like people's motivation freshman, fall are, well, I gotta get good grades again to go to college. And I feel like I don't think there's any problem with how you get motivated, but something about that just doesn't feel right.
Oh yeah, so one thing I did want to mention was the college list you get at the start of junior year, I think. That was that was a terrifying experience. Just seeing all the quantified data, and it's so easy to sort of beat yourself up over what are the schools that you see in each category, and like I know some people were also comparing those with other students, and I don't think that makes much sense.
Coming here has made me realize that like going to a prep school already puts you like halfway into the door. It's a huge advantage you have over people, and you should always be grateful for that, and that's something I've been really grateful for.
It has really demystified a lot of the top colleges because beforehand, when I just knew of their reputation, I thought, okay, the people there are probably they're definitely they're way smarter than me. They're like, oh, they're all like they're all like Olympian math people, or they're like really good at they wrote like research papers. They wrote they were interviewed by like New York Times when they're like 16 or something like that. But then after I went to Deerfield, I really realized that they're just like people who go to these top schools. I know them personally. I think they're just normal people. I mean, we're all normal people. And I think a lot of times like everybody's impressive achievements, but like it's really like it's really like it's not that like lofty anymore.
That it's gonna be okay. Like you're gonna be fine. Like I think if someone had sat me down in like November of like this year and just like shook me and been like, you're gonna be fine, like it's literally gonna be okay, like you're gonna like go to somewhere that you like, you're gonna get into college for sure. That's one thing that I think everyone like is secretly really scared about, but it's gonna happen. And even if you don't end up going to like your dream school or your first choice, like I think like just like being okay with that and like reckoning with that, and also just like I think it's okay, like you can transfer if you like really hate it, like it's gonna be okay. There are like so many more options than like people like actually like give you.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just to keep an open mind. It's so easy to get caught up in your friends, your peers, but just being able to keep an open mind, especially after the process is over. I'd say the biggest kind of shock to me was once it was all done, once I got all of my acceptances back. It was a really weird feeling because, of course, like I was happy with places I got into, and I didn't feel like I was necessarily screwed. But there was also this feeling of like, what do I do now? Like no one told me that. I know a lot of people felt this. Like no one told me that the hardest part might be at the very end when it's all over and you're sitting there like, wow, like hours put in, weeks put in, and now I'm here. Like some schools that I put in weeks worth of effort in or just responded with like a no, and it's just it's not like, of course it's disappointing, but I found it was more just like just exhausting.
Like this is gonna sound so cliche, but find a school that is right for you, because like there are so many schools out there, and people did tell me this before I started, and I wish like I listened to them, and I wish like in that early round of deciding between an ED school and like those EAs that I really thought about maybe not like applying to the ED school with like the lowest acceptance rate just to raise it by a few percentages, but really like thinking about that like school that I want to be at for me, not because of that like acceptance rate.
Not to get caught up in the rejections or the acceptances because of how many external factors or the external factors that do exist in the college admissions process. You don't know, like for example, who of your peers are like maybe legacy students or recruited students, or maybe like vice versa, who like if affirmative action is plays a role. Like there's no reason to get caught up in results, and it's really just to accept what has happened as it is.
The right school will find you and everything works out in the end. I know for me, I rejected that statement throughout my whole college processes. I didn't believe it. I thought it was, just something to make someone like a sentence to make someone feel better about the process, whether it be going well or not. And I completely rejected that statement the whole time. And then coming towards the end of my college process, and now I realize that that's totally true. And it's not about the ranking, is a good school, bad school. It's what school is a good fit for you.
As long as you are representing who you truly are, there's nothing to worry about, because whatever decision comes, it's because you fit into their place, or you wouldn't have fit into their place. So don't worry about it once you hit send. It's out there, and there's nothing you can do about it anymore.
I think for college essays are going to be hard. At least for me. I think for most people it's going to be really hard. For some people you might have fun, but I think the point is that what I've learned through all these processes, that it's actually easier if you just have fun with it. Because when I was first writing college essays, I was keep thinking about like, oh, how should I present myself? Like I was thinking from the college's point of view. I said, oh, I want to show them this, show them that. But then when I'm thinking of how I'm going to show them this, show them that, I write something and I read it and I say, this is not me. This is not how I write stuff. And I felt, okay, it's not me, so I go back and I revise and think, oh, how should I actually present it? And it just becomes this whole sort of vicious cycle between like how I want to be perceived by colleges and how I think I should be as a person myself. And this whole conflict just basically made it so much harder and made the essay so much worse. I feel like at the end of my application, like during winter break, when I literally didn't have time, and at the end my principle was just that I'm gonna write what I want to write. I just kind of pick a general topic of what I'm going to write about. I'm going to write as I want to write. If I want to put jokes in it, I'm going to put jokes in it. If I want to make some slightly out of pocket things, I'll put them in there. And I think that is who I am. I think that did help me with my college essay. And I think that's ultimately what mattered.
Stay inspired. I think for me, when I was going through the college process, it was a lot of reflection and a lot of like stepping back, and just it almost feels like you're in a limbo, but that doesn't mean that you can't grow in the process. I think I've learned so much about myself just writing these essays and going through this entire process, and in some ways it really solidifies, or for me it's really solidified like what are the things I'm passionate about? Like, what are the things I'm interested in doing in the future? And that can be a really, really good thing, and you should nurture that.